Imagine a world where power reigns unchecked, where leaders can act on a whim and justice is subject to the mood of the day. Now imagine the opposite, a world where everyone, from the highest official to the everyday citizen, is held accountable under the same set of rules. This principle is known as the rule of law, and it's the very foundation of freedom and fairness in society. Today, we're diving deep into what the rule of law means, why it matters, and how it safeguards the rights and lives of every single citizen. Let's explore why these laws are far more than just words on paper. They're the guardians of justice for us all. So what is the rule of law? Rule of law is a foundational principle in democratic societies, meaning that all individuals, institutions, and entities are subject to and accountable under the law, regardless of their status or power. It ensures that laws are applied fairly, consistently, and transparently, without bias or favor, and that no one is above the law, not even government officials. What are some of the key principles of the rule of law? Number 1, equality before the law. Everyone is treated equally under the law, regardless of social, economic, or political status. This principle prevents abuses of power and protects against discrimination. Legal certainty and transparency. Laws should be clear, publicized, and stable. This means that citizens should be able to understand the law and predict how it will apply, allowing them to make informed choices. Fair and impartial legal processes. Legal proceedings should be fair, and judicial decisions should be made by impartial judges. This requires an independent judiciary that isn't influenced by politics, ensuring that cases are decided on their merits. Accountability to the law. All public officials, including legislators, law enforcement, and government leaders, are subject to the same laws as ordinary citizens. This accountability helps to limit the misuse of power and corruption. Protection of fundamental rights. Rule of law includes protections for fundamental human rights, such as freedom of speech, religion, and due process, allowing individuals to challenge actions they believe are unjust. Why is rule of law important? Rule of law protects rights and liberties, ensures that citizens' rights are upheld, and provides a means for individuals to seek justice if their rights are violated. Prevents abuse of power. By holding everyone accountable, it curtails the potential for government overreach and arbitrary actions. Thirdly, rule of law promotes stability and predictability. People and businesses can operate with confidence, knowing that the law will be applied consistently. And finally, the rule of law fosters public trust. When laws are applied fairly, citizens are more likely to trust their government and abide by the law themselves. The rule of law is a cornerstone of just societies, ensuring that law governs, not arbitrary decisions. It is essential for democracy, economic development, and human rights, providing the legal framework that upholds justice, equality, and freedom for all. What is the opposite of the rule of law? The opposite of the rule of law is often referred to as rule by lawlessness, arbitrary rule, or rule by men, or rule by individuals. In such a system, laws are either absent, applied inconsistently, or manipulated by those in power to serve their interests rather than the interests of society as a whole. Here are some key characteristics of systems opposed to the rule of law. Arbitrary rule. Laws and rules are applied unevenly or selectively, based on the whims or decisions of those in power. This leads to inconsistent justice and unpredictable outcomes, as leaders and officials make decisions based on personal or political interests, not on established legal standards. Authoritarianism or tyranny. In authoritarian regimes, leaders often operate without checks on their power, enforcing their will without accountability. This can include dictatorships, absolute monarchies, or totalitarian states, where one person or group makes laws and enforces them selectively, without respecting individual rights or legal processes. Third, anarchy and lawlessness. In a state of anarchy, where formal law is absent or disregarded, there is no consistent application of rules, leading to chaos, instability, and insecurity. People may take justice into their own hands, often resulting in violent conflicts and power struggles. Fourth, corruption and nepotism. In systems lacking the rule of law, corruption often thrives, as officials can be bribed or influenced to make decisions that serve specific interests instead of following impartial legal standards. This leads to a breakdown in fair governance and increased inequality. Fifth, rule by law in a negative sense. This is when laws are created, but they are designed to oppress or control rather than ensure justice. Laws in such systems exist not to protect citizens' rights, but to enforce the will of those in power. This often occurs in totalitarian regimes, where laws are used to silence opposition and control the populace and maintain authoritarian rule. So what are the consequences of opposing rule of law? In the absence of rule of law, societies often experience injustice, insecurity, and oppression. Without consistent legal protections, individuals lack reliable rights, freedoms, and protections. This erosion of accountability and fairness can lead to social unrest, economic decline, and widespread distrust in government. In essence, the opposite of the rule of law is a system where power is unchecked, accountability is absent, and citizens are left vulnerable to the decisions of those in authority. So what is the relationship between the rule of law and democracy? The rule of law and democracy are deeply interconnected, as each supports and strengthens the other. In a democratic society, the rule of law provides the foundation that ensures fairness, accountability, and the protection of individual rights. Without the rule of law, democracy is vulnerable to corruption, abuse of power, and the erosion of rights. Here's a look at the relationship between the two. In a democracy, the rule of law ensures accountability of leaders. The rule of law holds elected leaders accountable to the same laws as every citizen. No one, including government officials, is above the law. This principle prevents the abuse of power and ensures that those in authority serve the people's interests rather than their own. The rule of law protects individual rights and freedoms. Democracy values individual rights, such as freedom of speech, assembly, and religion. The rule of law upholds these rights by providing legal mechanisms to protect them and offering remedies if they're violated. Without the rule of law, democratic freedoms would lack meaningful protection. Rule of law promotes fair and free elections. Election laws are enforced to prevent fraud, ensure equal access to voting, and provide an impartial process which is essential for democracy to function. In addition, rule of law provides stability and predictability. The rule of law creates a stable legal environment where citizens and businesses know their rights and obligations. In a democratic system, this stability is crucial for citizens to trust the system, participate actively, and exercise their democratic rights without fear. Also in a democracy, rule of law supports equality and fair treatment. Democracy is rooted in the principle of equality, where every citizen has equal worth and voice. The rule of law reinforces this by ensuring that all individuals are treated equally under the law, regardless of status, background, or power. Rule of law prevents tyranny and arbitrary governance. Democracies are vulnerable to populism and authoritarianism if leaders gain unchecked power. The rule of law acts as a safeguard, limiting government actions to those within the legal framework. This keeps democratic leaders accountable to constitutional and legal principles, preventing a slide into tyranny or dictatorship. Why is rule of law essential for democracy? Without the rule of law, democracy risks becoming mob rule or deteriorating into a system where power is concentrated in a few hands. Rule of law ensures that democratic values are preserved, that rights are safeguarded, and that the system remains fair and just. In essence, the rule of law is the backbone of democracy. It provides the legal structures that allow democracy to thrive, ensuring that everyone is equal before the law, that power is checked, and that citizens' rights are upheld consistently. Together, democracy and the rule of law create a balanced and just society where both individual freedom and collective responsibility are valued. Together, democracy and the rule of law create a balanced and just society where both individual freedom and collective responsibility are valued.